Welcome everyone, this is Dr. Jaitly, your cardiologist on your favorite video channels on social platforms, MuniMeterHealth, and obviously as you all know, we are primarily geared towards improving clinical outcomes by combining medical education with patient education, as you know. So without any further ado, I'd like to delve into the subject matter. It's a very short video. I wanted to tell you what is HDL and what is LDL and what are triglycerides, if you will. Now, assume that these are the three lanes in the highway of the bloodstream here that's traveling through the arteries and capillaries, the miles and miles, thousands of miles of your cardiovascular system in the entire cardiovascular tree, if you will, in the human body. And of course, heart is very important, brain is important, kidneys are important, and so are the splanchnic and many other, organ systems. So every organ system has its own arterial supply, has its own capillaries, and has its own venules, as you know. However, the arterial supply, if you can picture, even though it travels as a bloodstream, it has several components within it. And the cholesterol, the way the cholesterol travels, obviously it's present in our body. The way the cholesterol travels is through these lipoproteins. This is a high density lipoprotein, we call it HDL. This is a low density protein, a lipoprotein. And as you know, every lipoprotein will have a fat mass and also will have a protein, as you see. So it's a lipoprotein or lipid, if you will. Lipid and a protein will make it a lipoprotein. So that's needless to say. So that's what makes a lipoprotein. And the third is a triglyceride. So this is purely fat molecules here, or the glyceride molecules. So HDL and LDL, let's discuss that quickly. HDL, because they are high density lipoproteins, they are also considered as healthy variety of cholesterol. Why? Because the cholesterol that travels within this molecule of HDL, high density lipoprotein, is considered as healthy. Why? Because it tends to wash away. It does not stick to the arteries. So HDL will wash away through the arteries, zip through the vessels. So these are the high, you can assume that this is in the fast lane. So HDL moves in the fast lane on the highway. LDL is on the slow lanes, and it's called it's the LDL, the cholesterol that's attached to the LDL molecule or the LDL lipoprotein, low density lipoprotein, is considered as low density or unhealthy, or we call it lousy. Why? Because it sort of snugs around and sits here on the shoulders of the highway, and as a result it just accumulates and creates more plaques, more problems, and it's a very, very slow moving LDL particle you can just conceptualize. And as a result, LDL tends to sort of sit next to the vessel wall interiorly within the endothelium, because ultimately all the macrophages will arrive here and form foam cells and later on form streaks, etc. And that's what atherosclerosis is, which I've discussed on a different video. But here we're just wanting to introduce you some simple molecules for the students and specifically for the interns and residents. Anyway, so HDL and LDL, LDL is a lousy, HDL is a healthy, and triglycerides, they are fat molecules which traverse again through one of these lanes you can picturize. But again, triglycerides tend to go up and down more often during the day. Like if you had a fatty meal. Now, a fatty meal does not mean that you have to have a whole steak dinner. All you need is a small piece of cake, a pastry, even a latte coffee. All these good stuffs that I'm talking about, okay? Milkshakes. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged fatty dinner. But the whole idea is that all it takes is a little fatty snack, if you will, and the triglycerides will immediately move up within half an hour to 1 hour. And they stay up for about 12 hours, more or less. So that's why if you were to have a blood test, it's the triglycerides which will matter. If you had a blood test, say you went in the afternoon after your lunch and had a blood test in the afternoon at a doctor's office, triglycerides will not be representative of your fasting state. Whereas HDL and LDL, they don't fluctuate throughout the day. They would fluctuate in a matter of few weeks, if you will. But triglycerides tends to. That's why a fasting specimen, that's why a fasting is required in order to know what your triglycerides are. Okay, so just to let you know, triglycerides are almost as important now. We are starting to recognize triglycerides also in within the culprit armamentarium, if you will, for producing atherosclerosis and promoting atherosclerosis, which is not a good thing. And of course, there's tons and tons of literature on triglycerides, and specifically so now HDL normal values you should know, because we do need to let you know the normal values. So HDL healthy, you need as high as possible. That's good. Okay, the higher the HDL, that's good. LDL, lower the LDL, that's good. Okay, so lower the LDL, that's good. And triglycerides should be less than 110 to maybe 120. Now HDL, the desirable value should be more than 40 or 45. LDL should be desirable is again less than 100 or 110. And of course, if somebody has coronary artery disease or other risk factors, then of course the lesser the LDL is, the better it is, because LDL, as I said, they are lousy dense proteins or low density lipoproteins, and then they tend to shrug on these shoulders of the arterial wall and cause all these plaques, if you will. And we can show the plaques here in the arteries of the coronaries briefly, and that's how they develop all over the place, and ultimately requiring stents or bypasses, etc., which we have discussed in other videos. So just briefly, quickly, you heard about HDL, LDL, and triglycerides here, and what they are, and what is good and what is bad. And of course, triglycerides are also bad. We are increasingly recognizing that, and a fasting blood test is really required for triglycerides, because you're checking the entire lipid profile in those individuals. Okay, so long, and talk to you again on the next video. This is Dr. Jaitly.